Hey guys, it's Jeremy Hero, Metal Music Meltdown, back with another video. What I have here today, guys, is my top 10 death metal albums of 2023. It's that time of year again where we assemble our year-end list for different things. My overall year-end list will be coming probably by next week or the week after at the latest. I wanted to do a year-end just death metal album list. This one was definitely a lot easier to do. The overall year-end list is driving me crazy. There's just so many high quality albums that came out this year. So I'm really having troubles kind of narrowing it down to 10. I might even bump up to 20, but I haven't decided yet. But let's jump right into death metal, guys. I consider myself more of a thrash head. Always love thrash the best and more traditional metal. So I'm definitely more a guy who likes melody in his metal and more hooks. But I do enjoy death metal quite a bit. There's some bands I really gravitate towards overall. And most of my list will be pretty popular bands, well-known bands, new albums, but they kind of stuck with me. So let's jump right in, guys. At number 10, I went with Hymns from Apocrypha from the Mighty Suffocation. This is their ninth studio album that just got released November 3rd through Nuclear Blast. Really solid album. These guys are just beasts in the death metal world, and they never really disappoint. Super brutal death metal with some technical elements. Great riffing, great vocals. They just put out, every album they put out is pretty solid. This is only number 10 on my list, I believe, because I only been hearing it for about a month. So I haven't really got a chance to super digest it like some of the other albums, but still worthy of the list for sure. At number 9, I went with the eighth studio album from American death metalers, Cattle Decapitation, with Terrasite. I think this will be higher up on a lot of people's year-end list. I've been singing a lot of praise this year, but it's a really solid album. Cattle Decap is pretty solid. Not one of my favorite death metal bands, but most of their work is pretty good. Good enough to make my top 10, but unfortunately only at number 9. Number 8, I went with the new album from Incantation. Love these guys, New York-based death metal band. Another band that's really underrated in my opinion. They should be a lot bigger in the scene. They are popular, but they should be, just under the cusp of like Cannibal Corpse kind of big, in my opinion. They put a really solid work and great songwriting, great riffing. Just a really solid band. And number 7, I went with the new one from Autopsy, entitled Ashes, Organs, Blood, and Crypts. This came out pretty recently as well in October. Really good artwork, kind of gory looking. I love Autopsy because they just keep it old school, like old school metal, very raw production. They don't try to frill it up or make it clean or more polished. They just keep it raw and it always sounds amazing. Really good band. I always enjoy all their releases. And number 6, I have the Mighty Cataclysm from Canada with Goliath. Really solid album. These guys are another band that are really consistent. At the beginning, they were more a straight death metal band, but more recent years, they're kind of dipping into the melodic death metal kind of subgenre, adding a little bit more melody to their music, which for me is perfect because that's what I enjoy. But this album's pretty raw. It's pretty heavy, aggressive, really cool artwork. And these guys got another band that never disappoints. And just a really solid album. Really liked it. Number 5 is a sophomore album from the all-female Brazilian death metal band Crypta. Their debut was killer. I was really excited for the sophomore album, and it didn't disappoint. Really solid album, really killer stuff, really good stuff. This is another album I've been singing a lot of praise, and I expect to see it on quite a few people's year-end list. I'm not sure if it's going to fall on my year-end list. It might be an honorable mention, but we'll see how it goes once I kind of make that decision. But really good album from these girls. Super heavy, great vocals, great guitar work, great drumming. All around, it's a really solid band, and they're killing it. Really good stuff. Number 4, I went the Mighty Cannibal Corpse. I know this is probably the favorite death metal band for a lot of people this year. Chaos Horrific just came out kind of more recently as well in September. Ever since Eric Rutan came back, he has been adding a nice dimension to the band. A lot really nice riffing from him, and I didn't quite like this album as much as the previous album. I don't go back to it quite as often. I'm not sure why. But it's a really solid album, really good album still. But for some reason, I prefer the previous album. And like I said, this one I just don't go back to quite as much as I thought I would. That's why it's not quite as high on my list, but it's still number 4, so it's still pretty high. And the top 3 for me, actually, the top 4 I kind of knew going in would be my top 4 for sure. That was no question. It was just depending on what order to put them in. So number 3, I went with Frozen Souls sophomore album, Glacial Domination. Fucking love these guys. Their first 2 albums have been killer. This is the new blood in death metal that's really going to take over once the old bands kind of start to disappear. And these guys are just in the pocket. They're just killing it. Love their debut, and the second album is almost just as strong. Just amazing album. Really good vocals. Still has the brutality, but it's kind of catchy and thrashy in parts almost. And just love these guys. Love their albums. Really good stuff. And at number 2, I went with Dying of Everything from the Mighty Obituary. Definitely one of my favorite death metal bands of all time. This is their 11th studio album. Love the artwork on this one. The thing I like about this album, it really keeps the rawness of death metal and the brutality, but they also incorporated a lot of groove into this album, which I really like. It kind of gives like a bounce to the music and like kind of a head bob. It's just really, really good. Well done. Really well written songs. I love probably one of my favorite vocalists in all of death metal. He's got that low guttural thing, and he does that kind of growl thing. The long stretched out growl is kind of a signature thing. And I just love this album. I'd be very surprised if it didn't make my year-end list for the overall list, but we'll see what happens. And the number 1, guys, this is actually a band I just recently got introduced this year, actually. This is a brand new band for me. They've been around for a while, but it's Horrendous with Ontological Mysterium. I think I was introduced to this through one of the videos on Sea of Tranquility. I think Jamie Laszlo mentioned them as a good death metal band, and he mentioned this album specifically, so I checked it out, and it blew my mind. The artwork is fucking amazing, but they're like a technical death metal band, progressive death metal band, but they do a lot of experimentation, and they just take death metals in places I didn't know it could really go. And there's like some parts that are like kind of like more melodic, some parts that are like more almost acoustic sounding, some parts are more mid-pace. They really kind of slow it down but maintain the brutality and like heaviness of death metal. It's just a killer album. Like this album really blew my mind. This for sure will be on my top 10 at the end of the year. I'm kind of curious to see how high it'll mark, but it's a really good album. If you're not familiar with these guys, definitely check them out. They are doing some things very impressive. Really good band. Okay, guys, that's my list for my top 10 death metal albums of 2023. Let me know down below what your favorite picks of this year would be. If there's any bands I missed or overlooked. Like I know Tumult had a new album out this year, was pretty good. That would be an honorable mention of mine. I tried not to include too many like melodic death metal bands. I tried to keep it to more tech death or progressive death metal, that kind of stuff. But you have these ones I came up with, so let me know down below what your picks would be if there's anything I overlooked. I'm always down for looking into new bands. So thanks for watching, guys, and stay tuned for my top 10 thrash albums on the next list, and keep it metal.